Hey everyone. So don't worry, this is an auger video, but I think I need to tell you a little bit about hydraulic motors so you have a full understanding of the nuance of the HydrosPlus Auger Plus and why it's important that we get the specs right for the smaller tractors and why it can also work for larger tractors. But if you're going to have a high flow skid steer, this isn't the one for you. Now, what I have in front of me is a typical motor. I think it's probably the most common. It's called a gerotor. As you can see here, I've put an acrylic plate on the back so that you can see what's going on the inside. Now it's called a gerotor, I think this is right, because this looks like a gear, but it actually operates as a rotor. And this thing in the center here wobbles. Thing is a technical term. It wobbles, it doesn't turn straight like this. So this turns, it doesn't wobble at all. This is set up for a 540 PTO. But as you can kind of see when it goes around, it wobbles. And I'll give a little more info on this in the future. I'd actually made a video about this and I didn't like it, so I never published it, but at least I still have my prop here. So I'll just tell you how this works, but you have other hydraulic motors like gear-driven motors, as well as piston pump motors and probably a few more. But on the gerotor, you can see you've got these cavities that happen between the gear part and then this external ring. And as fluid, time the fluid that's coming out each one of these holes that's in each cavity, timing it in the right way as you might expect, and it can turn. And it turns. Displacement determines just how much power you have. Flow determines how much speed, just like anything else in hydraulics. That said, the reason I have this in front of you and why I'm telling you about it is notice within this cavity and the part that's actually doing the work, there are no rubber seals. This is metal to metal. Now there's a rubber seal you can see right here around the edge. And if you were to put the hoses on, these are O-ring Boss, and there's other seals. In a hydraulic motor and in a lot of hydraulic components, like SCV valves, the part that does the work is actually metal to metal. The clearances are really, really tight, but they do have O-rings in certain places. And the O-rings are typically meant to just keep the fluid inside from leaking out of the casing. But again, the part that does the work is actually metal to metal, as you can see there. And of course, that makes for very long wear life. You don't have to worry about O-rings getting overheated or getting worn out by friction, whatever, because it's metal to metal. But the important point, and the whole reason I'm talking about this, is with metal to metal, you're not going to have a perfect seal. And this is exactly why hydraulic motors have minimum flows. As you can imagine, if you were to just put, let's say, 1 gallon per minute through this, it would go so slowly that it could seep through all of these little cavities. And that's why if you can get it to move, it will not have any torque, because anytime it hits any resistance, it's just going to slip past the metal pieces. Now, once you get to a certain amount of flow, with this motor, it's probably something like 4 or 5 gallons per minute, the hydraulic fluid will actually act as the seal. And by doing so, you can start to get more efficiency and full power. So I'll do a longer video on this because I think it's interesting, and I'll do some experiments to kind of show you how the fluid interacts based on the different speeds. But I wanted to give you just a primer on it as we talk about the auger today. All right, now to the fun part. Now this is a teaser video, so you're not going to see all the ins and outs of this auger, but I do want to tell you my thinking behind it, why we're bringing an auger to market, and I'll show you the different speeds that it can run. I would dig a hole, but I don't want to dig one in my yard at the moment. But also this cradle, which is a skid steer cradle, doesn't work for small tractors or even bigger tractors in my case, because you don't have enough tilt forward to get out of the way of the cradle, based on how that one's made, but that one's for skid steer. So why an auger? I think this is something that a lot of people want. I think it's something that a lot of people have some use for. And also for the smaller tractors, even if you have HydrosPlus, you probably aren't able to rent one that is this style, meaning it's hydraulically driven. You can put it on the loader, or you could put it on one of those booms on the back, but have it hydraulically driven. It's not something that's easily accessible to small tractor owners. And so I'm hoping that if we can bring this to market at the right price with the right options, that we can solve that issue. And we can do it in a way that somebody who's just a tractor enthusiast and uses an auger once every 3 years can justify the value, as well as somebody who uses one basically commercially because they do tractor work for other people. I don't do tractor work for other people, so when I have an auger like this, me and my dad build fences around property, his property, our property, however you want to put it. But we don't do it for anybody else. There's no money to be made with the auger, so it all comes out of our pocket. So that's the why. Here's the what, right? Initially, I wanted to take a bit, a motor, a cradle, and a frame and sell it all for the best price I could possibly sell it. I wasn't gonna let people have different options because making it simple was gonna be what helped me meet the price point. Well, I've changed my mind. And that was probably a dumb idea to start with because I'm not somebody who's gonna tell somebody what to do. You can do whatever you want. But I do have to protect and make sure I'm not paying you to do whatever you want. So I think I can do that. So let me talk about that. So the bit, our bit's gonna be different because it's gonna be shorter and it's gonna be a little bit bigger than the typical 9-inch bit. Now this is a 2-inch hex. You can run an 18, 24, 36, whatever you think you can get at your local hardware store or rental store. And it'll fit on this shank. Now, whether you have enough room between you, it, and the tractor, that's a different story. But this is a standard 2-inch hex, and we're gonna make a shorter bit, and I'm only gonna offer one bit that's a digging bit. I think I am gonna try to offer a stump bit, stump planer is what they call it. I don't have one of those just yet, but I think that's something that we can offer, and because this is a planetary gear set motor and it's set up to run with a lower flow, we should be able to turn it. We'll find out. This isn't the bit that we're offering. This is a standard 9-inch bit that you might get at Tractor Supply, but it has the hex connection, and I'm just using this as my prop today. The motor is, let me tell you, the reason we have a 10-inch bit instead of a 9-inch bit, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but we want to be able to take the motor all the way into the hole. 9 inches, you can just about do it. I feel like 10 inches should be enough. Maybe we should go to a 12-inch bit. We could do that in the future, but this is where we're starting at this point. So the shorter bit requires that you can take this into the hole up to about right here, because you really need to be able to get a 3 to 4 foot hole, and if you shorten the bit, you can't do that unless you can put the motor into the hole. So shorter bit so that the lower lift height on the smaller tractor is better accommodated. And you might say, well, there's plenty of room if you bring it all the way to the top. And that's true if you're digging on flat ground, but if you walk up to this here and you want to dig right there, you're not going to be able to do that unless you get your tractor up there, and it's muddy and there'll be other challenges with that. So that was the thinking. The motor I've already mentioned is a lower flow motor. It's an Eaton motor on the inside with a planetary gear set. 6 gallons per minute minimum. There are a few models, maybe one model I've ever seen that is out on the market that is lower than that. I think it's 4 or 5, but it does not have the planetary gear set. It's not even in the same class when you talk about turning torque. You wouldn't be able to do a planer, I know for sure. And in any ground like that right there, which is a bunch of clay and rocks, you wouldn't be able to turn even the digging bit. So I definitely think you should think about, before you get any of them that are direct drive, think about what kind of soil you're digging in. If it's sandy soil, you're probably fine. That's the motor. The cradle is going to be different. You might even think about, if we turn this upside down, the cradle is going to have a bit of a boom out here. It's going to get a little bit higher and a little bit further away from the frame. So I'll show that next week when I get it done. And the cradle, originally when I was working with the manufacturer, they were basically making a frame for the auger. I couldn't get them actually to make a frame that goes on a fork frame, so I've made my own here. I copied their design. They gave me the drawings to do this portion of it. I did this portion, and it's just not going to work because that's designed for skid steer. We'll get that handled, but let me tell you a little bit about the frame and the story on the frame. Now this is a 48 inch, and what if you saw it out in the wild, other than the fact that it's not painted, you would say that's a forklift frame, and you would be exactly right. I started with just making a frame that didn't have these notches in it, and it was a little bit narrower even, I think, because I was trying to save weight, thinking about freight. But after I got into it, I was like, well, if we're gonna go this far, I might as well make it into a forklift frame. That way, if somebody decided they wanted to get some forks, or they had some forks laying around, or maybe we'll sell forks, I'm working on that right now, you get some multifunction use out of it. Now, I fully expect most people to not buy this from me. A lot of people already have forks. I think that's great. That is going to save both of us more money, and I think it's going to be a better deal if you've already got a forklift frame. Now, the difference on this frame, and it's not final yet, is I am going to bring it out an additional 6 inches. So if you think about sitting in the operator station, a good place to dig a hole would be right here. Being able to see that, your line of sight coming in here, you can see that's ideal. So I want to bring this out a little bit further. I'd like to bring it out a lot further, but shipping is going to already be a challenge with a 60-inch frame like this. So I'm going to stick with 60 at the moment. That said, this will be a forklift frame. We're probably going to also offer forks. So, and I don't have final pricing yet because I'm still working out some of the details, but what it's turned out to be is, oh, last thing I'll mention, you can take this, put it on a boom if you already have one, or if you pick one up on Facebook Marketplace, and I have to figure out exactly how the pin configuration is going to be most common, but you'll be able to put it on the back and run it with forward and reverse, you know, just like you do on the front if that's what you want to do. So I'm trying to give the most flexibility possible on being able to save as much money as possible and getting an auger that is usable for most of us. Now, where was I? So we've got this forklift frame. I expect that most people are going to probably buy the cradle, the auger, and the bit, and use their own forklift frame. But I'm going to make it where I'm not going to sell the bit by itself, most likely. I am going to sell the motor, probably the motor by itself, and then packages of bit motor cradle, bit motor cradle frame. And all of them will come with hoses. We'll provide those as well as a part of the package. So that's it in a nutshell. Let me show you some speeds. And I've already run the test with the flow meter to get, you know, general speeds. It's not going to be down to the 1/10 of a gallon here, but it's going to be close. So based on how this tractor's tuned, this is set up on what a John Deere 1 Series would be, wide open throttle, 1 Series or the 2025R. So pretty slow. But you might be thinking to yourself, that's fast enough for me. And you'd be right, except of what we talked about at the first of the video. As soon as this hits anything, it's going to stop. It does not have the efficiency to run and create the torque that it needs to create. We run up here to a 2R3E speed, about a 5.5 gallon per minute. There we go. Same thing on this. I would say that's fast enough to dig a hole for most people, especially if you're not doing it commercially. But you're not going to generate the torque that you need if you run into harder soils. So you're going to need HydrosPlus, or you're going to need a bigger tractor even to run this particular auger. We run up to about, this is going to be about a stage 2 wide open throttle. So HydrosPlus stage 2 on a 1 Series tractor, wide open throttle. Plenty fast. Stage 3 wide open throttle. Still probably not slinging the dirt off of the auger, but that's quite fast actually. And with stage 3, you're going to be about the same speed as wide open throttle on a HydrosPlus 2R3E solution with our pump solution. So that's it in a nutshell. I think that's long enough for a teaser. More videos to come soon, and you'll actually get to see this thing digging. Questions, comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.